You are with Attorney Chiquita Hall Jackson of Hall Jackson and Associates, known as a discrimination disruptor, civil rights attorney, and the workers' rights attorney.
Hello, and welcome to Justice for All. My name is Portia Monique, and I'll be your host. Today, we're joined by Chiquita Hall Jackson, an acclaimed civil rights attorney, founder of Hall Jackson and Associates, as well as an author of We Gonna Be All Right. Welcome to the show, Attorney Chiquita Jackson.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into our interview and dive into the climate of today and the shutdown, I really want to know just a bit more about you and how you began on this road to become this expert civil rights attorney.
Thank you. So I started off as a general law attorney, meaning that someone once told me you was a door lawyer, you take any and everything that walks through the door that feeds you. But I started off doing personal injury, which we know the car accidents, criminal family law, and then every blue moon I would get these lovely employment law cases that just tugged at my heart. One being a woman that was sexually harassed who wanted to cut her face because she didn't want to no longer look beautiful, so people can stop touching her and sexually harassing her at work. Another one was an elder gentleman who was, let's say, less than 5 years from retirement, and within that he did one infraction, aka policy violation, in his whole career that he had given these people over 20 plus years, and they fired him. And I felt like all this was unwrong, all unjust. And so I'm like, okay, these are the stories and the cases that gets me up every day. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And every time I decided that I was going to try to put in an application and go work someone else, I will then get these stories from my colleagues that went to law school with me and that's in the legal industry. And just other everyday people talk about how horrible their workplace was. And I just continue to say, no, I'm just going to have to continue to have my own firm and continue to fight for these workers. And although I had this voice and I can fight on paper and I can go before certain judges, I felt like a national thing needs to be done. More people needed access to me. So I started my platform, Blow the Whistle Law, on all social platforms so that people can just hear every day what they need to do to protect their rights, even when you cannot afford an attorney, what you can be doing daily to protect your rights. And so again, that's Blow the Whistle Law on all platforms. And then we wrote our lovely book, We Gonna Be All Right, a Black Executive's Guide to Navigating Workplace Dynamics. Again, for those who maybe cannot afford an attorney right now, or even don't even need an attorney, you just want to know how to get through the workplace without the breakdowns, without the anxiety attacks. And so all that is listed in there.
Yeah, so please let us know, where can we purchase your book?
You can go to blowthewhistlelaw.com, blowthewhistlelaw.com. You can find our lovely apparel, and you can also find the book.
We'll most certainly be supporting you. Now, let's get into unpacking this legal, economic, and emotional impact that's going on right now with this government shutdown. Break down for us, if you will, where we currently are in the shutdown and how we're progressing towards progress.
I'm happy to announce as of today that there has been a deal, allegedly a deal that's going to require the president to sign off and the speaker to go ahead and finalize these things. And I'm sure they will, because it's more in alignment with the Republican Party wants to do, along with what the president wants to do. But the reason I'm happy is because millions of people are now going back to work. People don't understand the amount of employees the government employ daily, and including Black and brown people that do not have the savings and the funds to endure 40 days and 40 nights of no pay and no work. And so I'm happy for those workers who now no longer have the stress of whether or not to put gas in my car, eat, and not lose my job, because if I fail to show up, I can now be terminated despite not being paid. So I'm happy for the workers, but as overall, I do want the fight to continue for what was on the floor and what was up for debate.
Now, we've heard Bernie Sanders go on his social platforms and say that this is not a good deal. So we're looking at it from your perspective of people are going to get to go back to work. They're going to get a chance to eat. They're going to get a chance to earn more money. How does your opinion fare with Bernie's opinion?
I agree. It's not a good deal at all. And I want people to know at the heart of this is healthcare, right? And so people, I watch people all day on social media, those who have just recently joined the political debate or
Mhm.
have had this long investment into it, meaning that they are political science majors like myself, went to law school, who those are just everyday citizens that actually have a concern and actually are tuned in what's going on. And the main thing I want people to take away from why this is not a good deal is because if the health care is not extended beyond January 2026, you have to understand that if you go walk your local neighborhood, I'm from Chicago, I know mental health clinics have been shut down completely in Chicago. And this is the second major city. And then you're talking about abandoned hospitals here and there. If there's no insurance premiums that people cannot afford, then what happened is a ripple effect. You have not only mental health facilities being shut down, you're talking about trauma units in your community that have high crime rates. And everyone want to focus on Chicago, but we're not even in the top 10. Let's get down to Louisiana, Georgia, and Mississippi, those who are heavy Republican states. You got to understand they have worse crime rates than the great state of Illinois. And so this is where it's really going to be impacted. You're not going to have those trauma centers. You're not going to have the healthcare center, and definitely no public assistant hospital like we have the county hospital, which all states have and major cities have. So those are the people that's going to be impacted. You're talking about millions of people that went to medical school, nursing school, anesthesiologists, all this stuff. They're no longer going to have jobs because there's no one going to be paying these insurance premiums. You cannot afford it. You no longer have the billions of dollars that's coming in government subsidies every month, quarter, whenever they was getting their money. So that's the ripple effect. And also, where do you take these emergency patients that have to pay out of pocket, that can only maybe can pay for urgent care, but no longer can pay for an actual hospital bill? The bankruptcy of the hospital, that's the why it's not a good deal. And I agree 100% with Mr. Sanders.
Right. Now, in terms of the human toll that it's taken, it's been 40 some odd days that we've been on lockdown, shutdown, government shutdown. And we've seen these powerful images of federal workers standing in the food bank lines, missing paychecks. From your perspective, as both an attorney and an advocate, what does this moment reveal about the human cost of political gridlock?
I love it. It reveals that we need some people like myself. We love our sister Jasmine Crockett and Hakeem Jeffries and so many other people, that actually are putting the people first. And that's when I remember as a little girl, it's like, I just really wish that people that live this life, meaning those who come from certain neighborhoods and economic backgrounds, could actually have those seats that are held right now by people in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate. You know why? Because those people know what everyday life looks like, and we're not guessing, and we're not sitting here. I had a roundtable discussion with a few people from this area, from this underrepresented culture and whatever situation may be, and I'm only guessing what their struggle looked like. People that had struggles, and actually, even if you didn't personally live it, you know someone personally, and you have grown up with people that to the left and right of you have been impacted, so you know what is needed policy wise. These are simply everyday necessities, civil rights, human rights, that if I remember going to study abroad in London for 6 weeks, and I got ill, and I went to the emergency room, and at the end, the doctor said, "Oh, let me guess, you're still sitting here because you're waiting on me to give you a bill, right?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "That's not how we operate. We're not greedy like the United States. Your treatment was free today. Go focus on something else." And that was in 2012 or 2011, somewhere like that. And to this day, we are in 2020, almost at 2026, and we still don't have universal health care. And we are fighting for simple rights when you see the other countries that do not even compare to the United States, when you're talking about how much revenue and money are being invested daily and can be print their own money. And yet we don't have a universal health care. And so what I get from this is that we need policies, and we need people that's going to be able to stick it out beyond 40 days if that's what it takes.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we have seen that Black federal workers make up a significant portion of the federal workforce, yet they often lack the financial cushion that it takes to weather a shutdown of this sort. Why are Black employees hit harder? And what does that say about generational wealth and access to resources?
I love it. What I get from this is legacy, lack thereof, and inheritance. We laugh all the time. You watch what is this? The when people going shopping on HGTV and we're working with their realtors and they're a teacher and they have jobs that we know that pay low income compared to someone else, right? They're not in the six-figure bracket automatically when you think of their career. And you're like, how they're looking for a $500,000 home and they just got pre-approved and that's their shopping budget because they have inheritance. They also, once they got that inheritance, they invested that money and they was able to save that money and put it in interest-bearing accounts. We don't have that. I have a good friend who her mom is sweet and do anything while she's on earth for her, but she let her know that upon her death, she would not be leaving anyone any policies. It'll be a policy enough to bury her and that's it. And I think across the board, we think, even for my family that I saw put money away for policies, it was enough to make sure that the burial expenses was covered and not a burden to the family. We don't think long term as a people. And even in 2025, we're still not. We do see younger generations and we see so many gurus online talking about legacies and investing more than all this stuff. But ultimately, the truth is we don't have those resources because we didn't get an inheritance. And then if we do save, you have to look at, we're talking about $1,500 is a cushion for us versus a white household. You're talking about at least $10,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 as a cushion where they could have survived this. We're talking about a mortgage payment I was lucky to get out of my savings, if even that. And so again, it's about legacy and the lack thereof. And we do need to kind of more educate our people and maybe start those classes in elementary school.
That's a whole word. Let's start those classes in elementary school because you said we may have enough for a mortgage, but we may only have enough for rent.
Yes.
Maybe some Black people don't have a mortgage, so it's definitely important to start earlier with that education. Now, I want to talk about the systemic inequities. You've spoken and written about them in pay as well as promotion. How do these existing disparities amplify the devastation of a shutdown like this, especially for women of color in government roles?
When we talk about pay disparities, you understand I'm not even making enough daily to survive, let alone survive a shutdown. And so there you have that. You also got to take in consideration the disparities in promotional opportunities. We are not getting the promotional opportunities despite being the most qualified, the most educated, and the one who you can rely on and is the backbone of the department. You hear all the time, this is Joy, this is our backbone of the department, but she have yet to be promoted or promoted fairly. And so you take all that in consideration. Now it's a triple effect on how I can make a decision to pay again. Am I going to eat this week or I'm going to make sure that my mortgage not behind? I log on to Chase Bank. They say, are you affected by the government shutdown? We're willing to work with you on your payments and things like that. And so we are impacted more because we're not paid fair. And then also when it comes to the layoffs, who's going to be furloughed versus you're forced to come to work every day despite not being paid. And I can guarantee there was more Black employees forced to come and report to work every day. Look at TSA in Atlanta. You will see the disparity that more people are forced because why? They fear for their job and they was already had some nasty supervisor over their neck already. So now I have to beg for my mom, my cousin, my brother, anybody else to give me gas money to get to work, give me lunch money to get to work for a job that's not paying me for over 40 days.
And so let's talk about that just a bit more when it comes to the workers who are furloughed and may not know their rights. They might be confused about what their rights are. What legal protections, if any, exist for these federal employees during these furloughs or layoffs? And what steps should someone take if they believe that they're facing discrimination or retaliation during this period?
And I'm glad you highlighted that because so many people say, all you guys was impacted. that wasn't just a you thing. It wasn't just a Black thing. Well, you do have rights, and you do have a right to be nosy, is what I like to call it. Go be nosy. When you look to the left and right, based on who was just forced to come to work, but who was furloughed. Because we want to make clear, furlough can mean sometimes you just don't get paid. There is no back pay for you sometimes. You know, you guaranteed if you come to work that once you're going to get that back pay because you was clocking those hours. But if I'm furloughed, I might just not get paid. It's not a guaranteed. And in most situations, Black are the first to be impacted by it. So you want to be nosy and find out, were you furloughed? When I asked my colleagues, asked everyone. I just saw a lovely rant of this former employee of CBS. He just got laid off, but he went to be nosy. He went around and asked everybody in his department, were you just infected? Was you just infected? Did you receive a letter? Did you receive a letter? And he said, everybody he asked that was white said, no, I still have my job. What are you talking about? Every Black person he asked, they had got a letter and they were impacted by this alleged layoff. And so it's our duty to go be nosy, find out who all was impacted by this. And once we find out who all was impacted by it, we want to see their age, because that's another one too that get hit outside of race. Where I'm over 40. Did I have like 3-5 more years left on before I could hit my pension and maximize my retirement? Was it someone that was disabled, race, gender? You want to pay attention to all of it. When not only was you furloughed, were you laid off, was you forced to come to work, how many people were written up during this time, despite having issues that the everyday person do not have to deal with going to work. I can't afford my rent. I cannot afford gas right now. I don't even have lunch money. I don't even have dinner money to get up, or coffee that I relied on every day. So those things like that, there are the EEOC rights, there are the Title VII rights, there are the Section 1981 rights. There are so many rights, your local Human Rights Act. So reach out to an employment law attorney if you feel like you were impacted.
I love that you provided resources for people to actually research and reach out to. And times are just hard right now.
Yeah.
So when we look at this from a civil rights perspective, you frame this crisis not only as an economic issue, but also, of course, as a civil rights issue. Can you elaborate on that? How is this shutdown exposing deeper inequities in how our government values its workforce, particularly for Black and Brown employees?
And I want to apologize. I didn't hear the front end of that.
Oh, no worries. So you frame this crisis not only as an economic issue, but a civil rights issue. Can you elaborate on how this shutdown is exposing deeper inequities in how our government values its workforce, particularly for Black and Brown employees?
Yes, again, it goes to the lack of policies and protections. The government knew for years that this could happen. It happened under Trump first administration. So for them not to have this emergency fund, and then when there is a contingency fund and emergency fund in the background, and you're instructed to help the everyday person by giving them SNAP benefits, and you say no. There are so many other emergency funds access that federal judges have ruled that they should make available immediately to the public. That was not. It exposes the disparity that Black people, I don't care how much we contribute to this country, to this nation, that we will always be disrespected, that we will always come last when it comes to prioritizing needs and policies that protect our communities and our babies. And that more of us need to be involved in politics. Yes, we appreciate the entertainers of the nation now get heavily involved or support someone who that does not have a platform based on your platform to help advance, so that we're not overworking our brothers and sisters who do get the platforms. Ben Crump, I pray for that brother all the time. Like, you got to go to city to city, state to state, representing all these employees and police brutality victims, I should say, because of the fact that we're only going to give one person a platform at one time. We need to give more people a platform, and we need to get more of us involved and not just, and some of us don't want the platform, some of us don't want to be in the front, but if that's the case, do more locally in the community and help those who are trying to get out there to make these things, to know that they're no longer a thing of a past. And I want to make it very clear that 1964 is what Title VII is based off, and that's of the Human Rights Act. I want to make it clear that the Title VII of 1964, the Human Rights Act, that was enacted after Martin Luther King was killed, assassinated. And so with that, I want us to look at our parents, our immediate parents. Who are you today sitting here? What year was your mom and dad born? And then definitely go back and look where your grandmother and grandfather was born. So we're not that far removed, is what I'm trying to tell people. So discrimination and lack of civil rights is not that far behind us. And it's closer to us than it is removed from us. And it's that close to coming back if we do not have more of us speaking up and speaking out.
Absolutely. So, in terms of speaking up and speaking out, what can we do? What immediate policy actions, grassroots efforts would you like to see to better protect and empower federal workers moving forward? And how can ordinary citizens, not just lawmakers, help push for that change?
I'm going to work backwards. The everyday citizens, I know we're frustrated. I see my mom every voting cycle get excited and rally up my little cousins that's going to be first-time voters, or 18 to 25, 18 to 30, just trying to make them know that they have a voice and go out there and vote. And then the moment they do, they don't get the candidate that they voted for. Don't get discouraged if that is happening to you, that you voted for a particular candidate and that candidate did not get elected that particular evening. Still continue to vote. But outside of that, I know it's hard to do it, but take the time to learn about those judges that you are electing to sit there and make rulings on policies. And outside of that, most importantly, because the judge will tell you any day, all I can do is enforce a rule. The policies comes from the legislators. So you definitely want to pay attention to who is your local House of Representatives, who is your local senators, and make sure you vet them. And just like the dating, go to something, at least 1 or 2 events prior to giving them your votes. You want to learn what they're doing and if they're really working in your best interest, or is they always gonna have an undermotive. We all want to be somebody, right? So outside of that, what else are they doing for the community, and what have their history and past practices shown? Because you don't come a hero overnight, and you don't care about the people overnight. So all the promises that could be put out there while on a political platform and during an election cycle, what were they doing in the past? And even if you just look at the flyers, what did they do? Were they involved in certain things that you have an interest in and that was in the interest of your community? Outside, that's for the everyday person. For lawmakers and just overall, I think people need to rally together. And that's one thing about the sad part about the shutdown being over. I saw so many people from so many walks of life that came together for these. I'm in my front yard. I would probably never be impacted by something like this, but I'm opening up my front yard to do a food drive. I'm going to go to Aldi's and get $400 worth of gift cards so that I can give those out. I saw people encouraging people that although TSA agents cannot take anything directly from you, just leave a gift card so they can have some lunch money. And then the restaurants within the airport to say, look, your lunch is comp. We came together, and in hard times, it has shown over and over again that we would come together, and it's more of us that is for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for human rights and basic needs of everyday people than those who are being greedy and selfish. And so lean on your neighbors during this time, and don't forget what that felt like during this shutdown when we did come together.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your opinions, your expertise, your perspective. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to touch on blow the whistle law just a tad bit more, because you often use your platform to educate workers about their rights. What are a few practical tips that you give right now to anyone worried about their job security and/or rights during this uncertain time?
My main thing, and I tell everybody that I talk to about this, document what you can, because again, although it's a disguise that everyone in the government is impacted, if you pay attention, I can guarantee you're going to see a disparity somewhere, whether again that's age, gender, or race, national origin. More than likely is they impacted certain groups of individuals more rapidly than they did another group. So document anything that you can. Also, take the time out to communicate and be nosy with your colleagues and see how they are being impacted. And thirdly, take advantage of your EAP programs. If it's shut down along with the government, you have great benefits. Your benefits did not shut down. Go get you some therapy. Go to urgent care and talk about your anxiety and tax and anything else that's going on so that it can be documented as well. And lastly, reach out to someone like myself, an employment law attorney, with any concerns or questions you may have.
We certainly appreciate you. Please leave your social handles beyond beyond blow the whistle law so that we can follow you and make sure that we are staying up to date with what it is that we need to know.
Yes, ma'am. At Blow the Whistle Law on TikTok, we get more followers over there. So definitely come over on TikTok. And then Chiquita Hall Jackson on other platforms such as LinkedIn and Facebook. Chiquita Hall Jackson on Facebook and LinkedIn.
We appreciate you. And thank you so much for reminding us that it's not just about paychecks, it's about principle, equity, and the dignity of work. We appreciate you as always. We will be tapping into your show, making sure that we're following you on all social platforms. And until next time, join us once again on Justice for All. Take care, guys.